Hello and welcome to another episode of Genealogy Quick Start. I'm Shamel Jordan, your host. And if you are enjoying this show, you should subscribe to our newsletter. Here you are. I will not spam your email with messages just to let you know what our new shows are. If you don't know, we go live on YouTube and Facebook and monthly on PhillyCam. This is a PhillyCam show, Philadelphia Public Access Channel. And today we have another two quick starts for you. One is with Jim Beidler and Michael John Neill talking about long-lived and live through ups and downs. We know our ancestors probably had some of the same challenges that we had today. Well, all of that will show up in the records, and Jim Beidler will show you how he was able to track this through his family tree. And we have a special guest, Diane Richard. She's here to talk about Manumission of Rachel and her children. So without further ado, let me bring on our our regulars for a quick start. First up is James M. Beidler, columnist and editor. Why can't I find Jim? Oh, there he is. Hey, Jim.
and just for the record, we think we're special too. So
you are special. You a special short bus special. Next up is Michael John Neill, genealogy tip of the day. Thank you so much for being here. So Jim and Michael, anything new happening in your genealogy world?
Well, I tell you what, there's a teeny tiny tombstone in the cemetery across the street from me, all by itself in a remote area of the cemetery. And it turns out there's three names on it, husband and wife and the kid. None of them are buried there. They didn't have family here. He died out of state, living under an assumed name, running from the law, or his wife in 1929. And that's kind of where I stopped it, because they were not my relatives. And it was just going to be a quick Facebook post about this tombstone all by itself. And there's all this drama. And I said, you've got to stop. These are not your people. They're somebody else's problem. Yeah. And I quit. But it was really weird. It's just strange. Really strange. No, but they're not buried there. But mom and dad and the child, who lived to be an adult, mind you, their names and years of birth are all on this tombstone.
Wow.
That sounds like a quick start.
It sounds like, it sounds like something, all right.
I forgot to ask folks, if you are here, whether you are watching live or in recording, let us know where you are. And of course, if you are a member of a genealogy group, please let us know, because, we love knowing about the genealogy groups all over the country. So, Jim, how's your genealogy life going?
Oh, pretty well. I just decided to write a Roots and Branches column, my weekly column that's been published going on 30 years, on AI, artificial intelligence.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Did you use AI to write it?
I'm going to omit a bad word from my response, but the word after the bad word is no.
There are several bad words that could go in front of that, but
right you are.
Yes, we'll leave that to mystery.
Thank you for
like those people in the cemetery across the street. Yeah,
I don't know. You went pretty far into that rabbit hole.
It just kept getting weirder and weirder, yeah. And I finally said, I don't care how weird it's getting, you've got to stop. Anyway.
No, that's fun for searching up random people in random cemeteries across the street.
Yeah, and he died in a car accident in Montana, and the male driver, and there was a woman in the back, and they had not been drinking, but they were headed to a bar. This is in 1921, and they hit a truck. The driver was arrested, charged with manslaughter, but he had a character witness, a former Montana attorney general or something, and a local judge vouched for him, and he got off on the manslaughter charge.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, where is she buried at?
They brought him back to Illinois for burial, and there's a tombstone with him and her, and they're apparently both buried together next to their child as an adult with his own wife. Yeah, it's interesting. So if you're bored, pick a random tombstone in a cemetery and search those people and see what you find.
I don't know if any will ever be as entertaining as what you found.
No. Something I can't even come close to topping you with is a correspondent of mine, probably about a month ago. He sent me a tombstone and a list of children. I believe it was of great grandparents of his, and it appeared like there were 2 children within 5 months of each other. And Of course, he's saying the math isn't mathing. So, but fortunately, it turned out, even though the tombstone looked like, let's say, 1873, it was really 1870, and so it had me going a little bit, till I looked up the burial, the register of the graveyard, but yeah, and I'm like, yeah, look good, but no.
You said he sent you a tombstone. Was that sent media mail or FedEx? Or just... would that qualify for media mail? I have to think about that.
I'm gonna bash you on top of your head with a tombstone. No, but actually, that brings up another story from recently. I got a request to call somebody early morning on a Saturday, because she says, is it legal to buy a tombstone? And because apparently a marker that had been moved from a cemetery that was been broken up was available at a
don't say a yard sale.
No, not a yard sale. No, an antique sale. And so we kind of me doing a Google search and so forth, kind of determined that if it's from an abandoned cemetery, it's not a problem. So
I just don't know if I don't know how to even think about that. Okay. So let's say hello. Hello, Renata is number 1. Hi, Renata. Thank you for being here and representing the genealogy junkie. Renata is joining from Newport News and 3 chapters of OGS. Thank you, Renata, for being such a genealogist. Hey, Jean, another genealogy junkie in Collegeville, PA, OGS Family Quest, and Greater Virginia. And of course, AAGG and South Carolina Historical Society. And of course, we have Valerie Ann. She is a genealogy junkie. She's not showing it though. Philly area, Genealogical Society of Pennsylvania. And of course, this is the Genealogy Junkie Hour. It is Gary Franklin Toledo, AAGS Cleveland, OGS in Chicago, and he's being shy and bashful today because there are definitely more groups that Gary is a member of. So, Jim, what are you talking about today?
Well, I'm talking about the ancestor in my direct Beidler line who lived the longest. Well, at least up to me. I've got a few years to go to see if I can surpass him. And there are other aspects of his character that I have heard about, but we'll save that for a little bit later.
Okay, and so this ancestor's name is
Franklin Beidler, also known as Frank Beidler. I don't think he had a middle name, as far as I've been able to find out. Born 1856, at a time period when the Germans were stopping using the prefix name of Johann, Hans, or Anna or Maria, but not catching on quite yet, to using middle names.
Right. Fantastic. So let's get started with 4 keys. Long lived and live through ups and downs, which is the part that I'm really excited to hear about. So key number 1 for Franklin, aka Frank Beidler, is that family economic standing can change quickly. So what happened with your family here, Jim?
Yeah, well, this goes back to Frank's father, Henry W. Beidler, which keen observers of Quick Start's past might remember that I also did a four keys on, and he was kind of becoming a land baron in the second half of the 1800s in western Berks County. He had come from a few generations that were, let's say, moderately prosperous. He also had a mother-in-law who was well landed. Let's just put it that way. And so in the 1850s and 60s, he was buying up farms in western Berks County. I think there were at least half a dozen land transactions. But then in 1871, he all of a sudden dies of typhoid fever. He even merited a front page obituary in the, well, actually not an obituary, kind of a mention on the front page of the local newspaper, where they praised his character. And so, there he is at age 50 and change. He has all this land. His children, his sons by his wife, are in their later teen years. And it's not too long before they start. You get deeds of his widow selling the land. Yeah, and family lore has it that she was also selling some of the stock, and she would send the boys to the market with a pig to sell, and then they'd come back with no money because they had spent it on a tavern on the road.
Ooh, no.
Yeah. So they're Frank, I mean, I think he owned a tiny piece of land and kind of a shack. That was all he ever had. As said, the widow still had one farm, but she had to sell the other stuff. So, a family that was kind of in the upper half was all of a sudden somewhere in the lower half.
Gotcha. So seeing the transaction of assets being distributed. Okay, so that shares what's going on.
Yeah, because another, I mean, there's several ways I've determined that Henry was fairly prosperous. One of them are the land transactions. Another one is a great document from the middle of the Civil War, when the first income tax had been instituted. But I think you had to be over $600 at that time, a fairly good income, before you were taxed. And one of the local papers put the list of all the taxpayers, people on their front page.
The one percenters.
The one percenters of the time. And Henry W. was on that list. So I know he was above that exemption amount. And then the one that really when we get to the images that we'll see, is from his time period on the cemetery he's buried at. He's one of the few granite stones, as opposed
Oh.
to the old-fashioned marble or even sandstones.
All right, the material in which their headstone is will
Yeah.
show you what their
Yeah.
economic standing is as well. I love that. We ready
Yeah.
for key number 2?
Yeah, let's go on to key number 2. Yep.
So key number 2 is combine family stories with data in contrasting ways. I'm dying to hear this one.
Well, it may be less brainy than that is making it out to be. I mean, here again, I play on the fact that he's this Frank Beidler ended up at age 84, even though his reputation, that detour to the tavern with the money from the pig sale was not supposed to be the only time that he spent things on the road. He had a reputation as an alcoholic.
Oh.
Yeah, but despite that, and you'll see I put together a little chart when we get to the slides of the relative ages of my Beidler direct line, and darned if Frank isn't the longest lived, and by a bit of a margin. I had some in the 70s, made it to the 70s, but at 84, he's the gold medalist in longest lived Beidler.
He was well pickled. Go ahead.
That may very well be what the story is. Yeah.
All right, so that's key number 2. Key number 3 is check as many sources as possible for the same event. So don't just grab and go, right?
Well, and this as I was putting together these 4 keys, yeah, I'm kind of showing how long in the tooth I am as a genealogist, because when I started, I had a very elementary idea of what records would be helpful, what records would be accessible, and of course this was the 1980s, so a lot fewer records were accessible. And you'll see his Frank Beidler's tombstone just has years on it, birth and death years. So at that time I was like, what do I do to get more information? Well, of course now, just online, there are the Pennsylvania death certificates. There's Find a Grave, which has, annotates not just what's on the stone sometimes, but other things. There's newspaper obituaries. There's church burial registers. All of these then have more info than that year on his tombstone. We sometimes, people who've started genealogy, in the last decade, sometimes don't realize how good they have it.
Oh yeah, it's a bonanza, all right.
Right. And I know Michael. I mean, he pretty much started when he was a kid, So he knows this too, even though as he will remind you, he's not as old as I am. But
that's true. That's very true.
Let's look at this last key before we move on to your slides.
Mm-hmm.
And the last key is the first child may have been baptized on the day of parents' wedding. What is this all about?
This
for the horse here, what's going on?
This is where, well, of course, this again was something I found early on and was like, oh wow, shock. There's now there I find over time so many marriages that didn't even happen, just children happen, or years later or whatever. This one made me chuckle because it was on the exact date of the baptism of the first child, and I don't remember who the minister was at St. John's Host Church in Western Berks County, but I just picture the minister saying, "Well, you're not getting that kid baptized until the two of you say I do." So let's get on that. And it's just a reminder that there is no one pattern for families being established and families growing. There can be a lot of different quirks to that.
Most definitely. Let's look at some of your slides. Sometimes we think we're so different than our ancestors. Dynamics are dynamics, family dynamics.
Yep, and we find that nothing new under the sun a lot of times. So here is the.
This is beautiful, Jim. This is
yeah.
Wait, is that some bird droppings on there? Never mind. Maybe it's my screen. I don't know.
No, there are some bird droppings. So yeah. Now it's kind of tough to see, but in the background you can see there are mostly marble stones in this section of the cemetery. It is the so-called new cemetery at St. John's Host Church in Marion Township, Tulpehocken Township. But even on the new cemetery, the first few rows are primarily marble, and unfortunately they've got some sort of lichen or some sort of creepy crawlies on them in the back there. But except for the bird stuff, the Henry and his wife Caroline Kinser Beidler, their stone is well preserved. Because, like I say, it must have cost them a pretty penny to get this granite stone. At the time, most people were using marble.
Is it a German thing to be so specific about age, month, and days? It sounds like
well, I wouldn't have said German. What do you think, Michael, on that?
I don't think so. It's more how big the stone was, how much they wanted to pay for it. And how you know what I mean. The bigger the stone, the more room there is. And I've seen ones where they're very non-German and they've got all that detail. I think it's it varies from one family to another how much they're going to want to shell out for that stone.
Yeah. And one area to another. But no, I typically see the what we call the age check. Because that's all, the first thing you do then say, okay, does the math work out? And sometimes it does, and sometimes, of course, it doesn't. But yeah.
I love that stone.
Yeah. Now we have Frank Beidler's stone. Now this is granite. It's a flat marker, not flush with the ground. It sticks up from the ground, and it does have nice little rosettes on the sides. But here we have just the year, the years for dates. No maiden name for the wife. I know it's Wilhelm, but this again to me is indicative of his impoverished economic state. By the time he died in 1940, he and his wife.
Did they die together at the same time?
No, just in the same year. Who
died first?
Yeah. That I don't remember off the top of my head. So, and I might be able to figure it out from the death certificate that we have on the next slide. Or no, not the next slide, the final slide. But yeah. So then this is my chart of my direct line. Johannes Beidler's the immigrant coming from town Gerolzheim in the German Palatinate. And so my generation by generation got off to a real good start here, 74 years.
Yeah.
1700s. His son Conrad, the miller, you know about him, Shamel, because you've been
To his house.
to his house, 70 years. Then we have a downshift. His son Peter Beidler died of tuberculosis at 36. Then an upshift to Heinrich Beidler, the next generation, 71. And then Henry W. Typhoid, so 50 years. And then we've got Frank the Drunk at 84 years.
He was pickled.
He's pickled. Richard, my father, 68 years, colon cancer. And me chugging along at 65, turning 66. We'll see what happens from there. Yeah, and this is Frank Beidler's death certificate, and yeah, it's right. He says he's widowed, so we know that Emma
The wife went first.
Yep, Emma Wilhelm Beidler died first. So, yeah, so that, and again, this is showing a whole lot more information than just year. That's on the tombstone. So it's yeah, and you know these Pennsylvania death certificates until 2011, until there was a legal change. I mean, you could get them with difficulty from the awful Pennsylvania Department of Health, and they would send you an awful copy off of their 1930s vintage microfilm. But then, because of the law change, they became public records death certificates at 105 years, and Ancestry digitized the originals, and now we have a real great copy of these. So.
And I know you and the Genealogical Society of Pennsylvania was in that fight, right, to get these death certificates available for us.
I was in my first go round as GSP executive director when I was at the table with three mooks from the Department of Health, and on my side, Jonathan Stayer, you remember him from the state archives, and a state senator's aide who had an interest in genealogy, and those Department of Health people. I got to cut myself short here because I could sing you a long tale about how they were trying to put and do anything they could to gum up the works against letting these records become open.
But you did it, and we're all so grateful for that. So, Jim, those were the 4 keys. Let's go through them again for Franklin Beidler. Long lived and lived through ups and downs. Key number 1, realize that family economic standing can change quickly. Key number 2 is to combine family stories with data in contrasting ways. Key number 3, check as many sources as possible for the same event. We have a plethora of information online now. Diane and I were just talking about that. Key number 4, the first child may have been baptized on the day of the parents' wedding. Jim, Michael, thank you so much. Where are you? There you go. All right, let us separate the show. Just 1 second. All right, we have our special guests coming up, and she's talking about a topic that is near and dear to my heart, which is Manumission. So let's not wait a second longer and welcome our special guest, Diane Richard. Hello, Diane.
Hello, Shamel. How are you doing?
I'm good. The reason I haven't said your maiden name is because I don't want to pronounce it incorrectly. How do you say your maiden name?
That's a whole story, but it's pronounced Acey.
Acey. Okay, that's what I was going to say. So
yeah, but you can imagine shorten that A, and there's been that the less polite way of having it said. So that's why I was happy to take on a more boring and conventional married name of Richard. It's hard to get it wrong.
Hard. Yes, it is, because I kept wanting to put the S on there. And I'm like,
Yes,
no.
that is the one thing, but still Richard to Richards is a little bit better than AC to. So
I gotcha. So Diane, I'm going to ask you what I ask all of our special guests, which is to share your genealogy origin story, how you got started and when you knew you were hooked.
okay, so this is kind of it's a quick 3-parter. So the first part is going to give you a sense of my age because it starts with high school and onion skin typing paper. So we had to do a school project, and I reached out to my grandmothers. One was in England, the other is in Virginia. The one in Virginia had no idea who my grandfather's parents were. So all I had on my chart was Mr. and Mrs. Acey. That was it. And it was because that's all I could do. I had to fill it out, right? And then, so now let's come forward, 10, 15 years. I'm married. I don't have kids. I actually, even though I'm working full time, I had time. It's such an alien concept now. And there was a family search center not that far away from me. I was living in northern Jersey at the time. So I started researching the Acey side. I learned it was Squiampa. I looked through the Finnish records. So my first research was all in Finnish records. Had a blast doing it. That now come forward to 2004. So over 20 years ago now, I had to switch. I just switched what I was doing. So I hung my shingle out as a professional genealogist. Well, I went back and wrote up my Finnish genealogy. Then I did Russian, Polish genealogy. Then I did my mom's English. So I think by that point, I was hooked in the fact that now, 22 years later, I still research people's families.
Nice. School is a great place to start this. I wish I could I need to figure out how to get into school and be a part of getting people to start doing it, their genealogy.
It was something that think about it. It stuck with me all that time. And I still have that onion skin piece of paper that I typed that information.
Oh, I wish I would have asked you that earlier. You put it on the slide.
Yeah, you're right. I have an image of it. I hadn't thought about it, but yeah. Oh well, another time, right?
Another time. So Diane, you have so many slides and so much great information to share with us. Let's go ahead and jump in. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All
and
right.
excited.
So, yay. I'm glad you're excited. So let's go ahead and get started with your quick start, Manumission of Rachel and Her Children. So who's Rachel, Diane?
Rachel is an enslaved individual. We're talking the 1700s, Revolutionary War time period and later. And you had asked me offline how I got started, and I've been thinking about it. I don't remember. Odds are it was a client project. Like I said, I've been doing client research for over a couple of decades now. But she just really grabbed hold of me. And so I like to tell her story, and I keep revisiting her. She's just one of those projects that she's never far from my mind. So
Okay. And so where is Rachel?
So Rachel, when we pick up the story, is in northeastern North Carolina. So Bertie County. But it ends up that in the course of the story, she's associated with Norfolk, Virginia, and also what we would call Piedmont, North Carolina, Central North Carolina, a couple of counties there.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with step number 1 for Manumission of Rachel and Her Children. Step 1 is to obtain the will and probate records. So tell us about obtaining wills. Where do we get them? And what's special about Rachel's?
So the thing is which we'll talk about a bit later, because of restrictions on manumission, a lot of times it is wills that are then giving us a clue that an enslaver wants to manumit their enslaved individual. It's just not that easy, which is what we'll talk a bit about more. The nice thing is that between Ancestry and Family Search now, a lot of wills and estate files and probate records have been digitized. So you want to look for those. They're often organized by counties within a state. But now with these databases, you don't have to know as well. In the past, you'd have to go to each county, look at the will books, look at the probate books, look at the court minutes. Now with these databases, it's a lot easier to find them. And that's great, because if you don't have that as a starting point, you're kind of stuck.
Thank you, Family Search. We're just going to take a moment of silence to thank Family Search. So that's step one. So you're going to get online and look for the wills and probates for evidence of possible manumission. So step two is to learn manumission laws. And we're going to go through the steps, and then we're going to show your slides and go through it again.
Absolutely.
So how do you learn about what is manumission, and how do you find out about these laws?
So manumission is specifically the freeing of enslaved individuals. There's also emancipation. You'll sometimes find people talk about emancipating enslaved, but the correct term actually is manumission. Now, when we're talking the laws, hopefully most of you have heard of the legal genealogist Judy Russell. So think of her and what she's always telling you about finding out the law. And that's important. I'll share a little bit about North Carolina laws, but guess what? South Carolinas are different. Virginia's are different. Tennessee's are different. Pennsylvania's are different. Georgia. All the states have their own laws, and they also change through time. So you want to go and look for what the laws are using the resources out there, which have been digitized again, a lot of the laws. And then you can find out how have they changed through time. Because that's No, I was just going to say, because what is a law at one point at the start of Rachel's process, it's not the exact same law at the time she is finally manumitted. And so you need to realize the law isn't frozen in time.
And where, we should know that today, but where should we go? What's a good place to start looking for these laws?
Well, when I do North Carolina, there's a digital platform that has published the laws of the state, both private laws and public laws. There's also House and Senate journals from the legislature, because your laws come out of your legislature. There's newspapers that will publish what is before the legislature, what then becomes laws. And then most of the states nowadays, if you go to your legislature or General Assembly page, it will have a history of the current laws and tell you when they have been changed through time. So we just have so much resources. And there's also legal platforms out there that also provide that information. So really a simple, as I say, Google search, though you don't have to use Google. But if you go out there and Google what are the laws and the history for the state you're looking at, and then if you're specific to manumission or enslavement, Hein Online is actually a great resource for laws regarding enslavement. Also including free persons of color. So it's not just enslavement, free persons of color. And Hein Online you can access for free to access that information for all the southern states.
Thank you. Step number 3 is to Okay, locate court records. So again, this is the same. Family Search is our fairy godparents.
Right. And for Family Search, you see some of it now with the full text search capability that's coming out. But always remember in Family Search that you can do a catalog search and see what records exist for each county. Because again, court records are going to be something for every county. You're possibly going to have the nice big books, which are the court minutes, but court minutes are a shorthand of court, but then you have loose papers and they supplement, those. And then remember those probates we talked about? Court minutes can end up in probate files. So a lot of different places. And then you have to think for court records, different jurisdictions. But again, family search is a great place to start. The other thing is look for state resources. State of North Carolina now has some of the colonial court records online to supplement then, what a family search is making available.
Yes, a lot of locations for America 250. Philly, I know, is another place that did a major digital project. And I think it's Revolutionary City is where you can get the ones for Philadelphia. All right, step number 4 is to check all jurisdictions. So you were talking about jurisdictions when you're looking at records. So can you explain what a jurisdiction is and how to get records?
So a jurisdiction is there's differing authorities that when we're doing something, they're involved. So when we're doing something like a manumission, it might start at a local court. Or it might, if you're living in North Carolina or Virginia at the late 1700s, they had district superior courts, which are multi-county courts. I mentioned the legislature, which is also called the General Assembly. Well, that's also another level. You could have a governor reached out to. Some things could go to a Supreme Court and then ultimately a federal court and then a federal Supreme. So you have to, you kind of look, so understanding who had authority at a certain point tells us what jurisdictions or the courts involved. And then finding the records, it's really, again, it's going family search again. North Carolina is a public record state, so we can go on family search and find them. But understand records have different names. So North Carolina, we have our county court, our district court, whatever. Well, as soon as I go to Virginia, I do have county court, but then I have chancery cases. We don't talk chancery in North Carolina, so you have to learn a bit about the lingo for what courts are called, these jurisdictions are called, because they're not going to always be the same, but they do the same function.
Learn the lingo. I like that.
Yes.
Step number 5 is to create a timeline. That's just such the best thing to do, right?
I almost every day start a timeline. In fact, today I worked on like 4 different timelines. So to me, they're just an easy way to chronologically put information and put context in, and understanding that and helps you to know where to look when for what records, because and also what ages are people, who had the authority to request or create a lawsuit or not, or and so to me, you can never go wrong with the timeline. And I find that they help people make discoveries that, I don't want to say we're right in front of your face, but they force you to look at your records and you see them a different way.
Yes, I agree. Step 6. Oops, I guess there was number 5. Let's look at your slides. So here's manumission laws. Tell us about these.
Right. So these are North Carolina. Again, they could be different. I put these few up just to give you a sense of, even quite early in the colonies, you have laws about manumission, and it was very restrictive. You can see here that except for meritorious services in 1741, somebody in theory should not be manumitted. An enslaved should not be free. And you're also forced, once you're manumitted and a free Negro or a free person of color, to leave the state within 6 months.
You gotta go.
So you might gain your freedom, but you cannot remain. And that more or less stayed the same till 1777. And then 1796, the law was revised. That comes out because of Rachel's case.
Oh,
her case is one of the cases that forced the revision of the law.
Okay.
And so when we talk meritorious services, that's a pretty high and very specific bar. And it is the only exception allowed by that 1796 law. So here I've got a slide showing the borough of Norfolk, because that plays into Rachel. William Freeman is her enslaver. There was a conflagration in Norfolk, January 1st, 1776, and he filed a claim for that. So reinforcing that he was impacted by that and this will play into the claim for Rachel to be manumitted.
Okay.
Now, I always like to share challenges because we have to be realistic that we wish everything would fall in our lap quickly, and
It doesn't.
It doesn't. And so you have to kind of be willing to have some setbacks. Obviously, multiple locales. You'll see this a bit more. That definitely played into where am I looking for what, where, and we could talk for 2 weeks about that on its own. So different authorities we've mentioned. So even if you got multiple counties and states, you then have these different court systems. Also, what doesn't exist, newspapers were not robust in North Carolina at this period of time. So we'd often use newspapers because they're great. They have all kinds of fun detail. There's also a time gap, which I think I finally figured out why, from the time of a will and estate to when actually some court action starts. You know what I mean? That because as you'll see, I have a will at a certain point, but we don't see anything for 15 years. What's going on? And like I said, I think I figured it out. And I can never find Rachel and her children past manumission. But knowing that they would have had to leave the state at that point, that's not surprising. But it's a bit frustrating, as you can imagine.
And it's like, where did they go?
Where did they go? Who are their descendants? You know, who's out there to pay homage to her? And it really did take effort for her to ultimately be freed. And she had to live long enough to achieve that also.
Exactly.
So this is the will of William Freeman, 1781. This is now in Bertie County. So that's where William ended up. And I just have the little snippet here. Mulatto woman Rachel and all her children their freedoms. The children aren't named in the will, but it is in the will. The problem is the will itself had no direct authority to manumit somebody.
So we automatically think the will is said in the will, they had to be free.
Yes.
But you're saying the will is not the final determination of whether or not someone is free.
Absolutely not. It's the court system that has to do that. And that's what led to this complexity. So here we have something now in Orange County. So if you're paying attention, I said Bertie County for a will. Well, now we have Orange County. That's because two of William's daughters ended up in Orange County. And they're praying for the emancipation of Rachel, Suki, and Billy. So now we know her two children are Suki and Billy. They're persons of mixed blood. They were enslaved by Robert Freeman, who's their brother in Warren County. So now another location. And these are all children of William Freeman.
Okay.
Now, so this is, these are somewhat chronological. In 1796, Robert finally petitions the General Assembly. That's what he thought he had to do. And so he petitioned the General Assembly of North Carolina, basically saying that because of the singular services rendered by Rachel to support his father at the time of the fire in Norfolk, she should be manumitted, as we already know his will requested.
Okay.
So again, a different authority now. Now, on the back of this petition, it's interesting because it had to go before a whole committee on the subject of emancipation. Had to be, you know, this is the thing where you have the House and the Senate, and they both have to look at it and talk about it. And then you have this committee, and what the committee effectively said is the county courts should be able to handle these requests for manumission or emancipation as it's written here. But they said that the old law was defective. So that's why in 1796, a new law was passed. And that new law then made it so that manumission requests could not come before the General Assembly or the legislature, that they had to be handled now by the county courts.
Okay. Okay. So they gave the county the power.
So they gave the power. So that means now that even though Robert petitioned the General Assembly, this now has to continue back into the county court system.
Okay. So yeah, I saw the same thing in Alabama where everything went through the legislature. I need to now find out when it switched over to the county? Because I'm pretty sure that they did a similar thing.
No, and if you think about it, and if you look at it, General Assemblies handled so much after the Revolutionary War into the 1800s. But at a certain point, you couldn't have everything that needed to be handled going to that level of government. That's why we have all these bureaucracy now, right? We have all these government offices that handle everything. And that's what you're starting to see is this transition of, we can't handle everything. We need to be pushing more of it down to the local level. So this is now 1799. So remember our will, 1781, 1796 before the, 1790s to the county court, 1799. Now we have the two sisters petitioning against their brother. And so to order that Rachel, Suki, and Billy are in the possession and care of one of the sisters. Now, one thing to recognize is this looks like a conflict, but think about it. You can't have a court case come before the court unless you, in a way, artificially create a conflict. Does that make sense?
Right.
So as the court is not going to go, we're going to do a case against Robert Freeman to make sure that he manumits Rachel per the will of his father. No. So in this case, you have to create something where it looks like the two sisters are going against the brother. So it's a bit of an artifact. But again, we're still talking 1799 now. So 18 years after William's will.
Wow.
So now we get to 1800. February 1800, that Rachel, mother of the children, Billy and Suki, had performed meritorious services for her master, William Freeman, that they are to be free and liberated from all bondage and slavery, to go at large as free persons with all the rights, and they'll be known by the names of Rachel Joel, Billy Joel, and Suki Joel. So they assumed the surname of Joel, and they are now free persons of color.
Yay.
But it took 19 years. So this slide is just to show you the geography. On the bottom, you can see Norfolk, Virginia, southeastern Virginia. Then you come into northeastern North Carolina. Then you kind of go west. That was very typical of this migration. But that meant all these locations were involved. So at the top, my numbers 1, 2, and 3, the will, the brother and widow, and then the sisters. And paperwork was found in every single one of those counties, and then in different aspects of the court system and the legislature, depending on the time period.
Wow. And full text search can kind of pull that all together for you.
It pulls a lot of it. In fact, it helped me learn some more things, which is what the last few slides cover. You keep going. So there's a discovery. This is why, even if we think we know the whole story, we keep seeking documentation. And that was brought up earlier. We keep looking. So now in May 1798, and some of this did come about from Family Search, Full Text Search. I had physically gone through years and years of records, but I'm a human, right? Well, and I'll say imperfect. What do we see? In the matter of Sam, a mulatto man, son of Rachel. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. I thought we just had Rachel, Billy, and Suki.
Yeah.
And guess what? Now we have Sam, who is a man. So it tells us he's older, who is a son of Rachel, formerly the property of William Freeman. And now, so in 1798, notice that said Sam, because of Rachel, he became free and was given the name Samuel Freeman. So he took the surname Freeman in 1798.
Wow. Gary Franklin said this is his family.
Oh, okay. That's like I said, Rachel has been with me for decades now. And I have a lot more. You can tell them to reach out to me because I have a lot. So
believe me, Gary will be contacting you the second we drop. Okay.
Sounds good. So Rachel had children, Billy and Suki. They all assumed the surname Joel. But Rachel also had a son, Samuel, who assumed the surname Freeman.
Freeman.
And Samuel Freeman, her son, actually achieved his freedom 2 years before his mother, who is the person who did the meritorious service, and his other 2 siblings.
Oh, wow. How did he get it? Okay, so I'm
Yeah, that's just, and so the research continued, right? We always continue. Well, I discovered in a state file almost 20 years later for William Freeman and Tabitha. This is 20 years after her death. It's almost 850 images. It's not where she or her husband lived. This is where her daughters lived. Okay. So that opened a whole other kettle of fish. But one document in 1814, remember I said that time gap? How come the will 1781, but nobody's really trying to manumit Rachel until 1796-ish? Yes. Well, guess what? Rachel was being kept by the said Tabitha as her body servant for the use of herself and son Freeman, Robert. So effectively, my conclusion is the siblings concluded to effectively retain Rachel, Billy, and Suki as enslaved individuals. And then once Tabitha was on death's door and died, that's when a more serious effort was made to actually free Rachel and her children.
Oh, wow.
And then I think this is my last bit, which I just wanted to share. Again, it was another found file in a different district, but same area. Mulatto Rachel should enjoy all the privileges of a free person. She saved, so this is her meritorious service, a great quantity of good rum and also large sums of money. So I had seen other versions and documents saying, this is why you keep looking again, that said money, a chest of money. She was known to have saved a chest of money. But I like this too, where it talked about a great quantity of good rum, because it was valuable. Rum was very valuable also, just like coins were.
And Rachel liked to have a good time. Now I really like Rachel.
So that's a very short version of her story, but it took 20 years.
Oh my gosh. So I don't even know where to start to ask you questions. There's just so much that you found. And so Rachel, first we have one set of her children, but we find out that she has William and Sam are separated from her.
She has Samuel. So Samuel. She has Billy and Suki, which they're always tied together with Rachel. Then we independently learn that you have Samuel or Sam.
Okay. And so after this court case, they basically go radio silent?
Yes. I mean, I will say I put in more effort to pursuing how the court case played out and how they were manumitted, but I did do some looking to see if I could find a Rachel Joel somewhere, a Suki Joel, but then odds are she would have married. The other thing to remember is by the time the court case was settled, even the youngest children had to be adults.
Yes.
So that's the thing too. Odds are Suki was married, even though the paperwork might not have reflected that. If the court case took 20 years, they weren't minors anymore at that point.
Exactly.
And then with them taking Joel, did they, retain the surname Joel because Samuel had taken Freeman? And so I did a bit of looking, but since I didn't have a client at that time, and you know how many rabbit holes we all have.
Diane, this is fantastic. Let's go through the steps for manumission of Rachel and her children. Step 1 is to obtain the will and probate records. Step 2 is to learn the manumission laws. Step 3, locate court records. Step 4, check all jurisdictions, county, state, town. Step 5 is then to create a timeline so that you can see what you have and where the gaps are. Diane, thank you so much for being here. I think is he still here? Michael's still here. Let's bring Michael on so that we can say goodbye. I think Michael didn't want us to bring him on. But Gary, we need to talk. I want to know if these are your folks, and I'd like to hear more. But everyone, thank you for joining us. Diane, so special. Thank you so much for finding Gary's family.
Great session. Great session. Yeah.
Thank you, and have a great evening.